Number 5. Scream. While there are undeniably great moments of humour and parody, I've always viewed Scream as a horror first and foremost. If you're home alone at night and live in the country, you can't say that opening scene with Drew Barrymore doesn't have the power to unsettle you. One area where I feel Scream really trumps other slashers of the 70s, 80s and 90s is how well written the core characters are. They all have very distinct personality traits and aren't just fodder for the killer to take out. The film keeps you guessing and you don't know what direction it will take next, and the whole whodunit component really helps to bring that across. Number 4. Nosferatu, the Vampire. Although it's only at number 4, I have to say the first half of this movie is the best horror I've ever seen put to film. The tension, the atmosphere, the locations, the incredible music, they're all executed brilliantly as we eventually get our first appearance of Dracula. And what helps to create Dracula as this formidable and dangerous figure are the warnings Harker receives before he arrives at the castle, both from Lucy and the natives of Transylvania. As good as the original version of Nosferatu is, this is one of the rare occasions where the remake manages to improve upon the original. Number 3. Frankenstein. There are many reasons as to why this is such a legendary and beloved horror film. The crazed scientist, the large towering castles, the gothic atmosphere. You then have the traditional monstrous figure who commits acts of violence and murder. But if you look deeper, you see that the true horror isn't how the creature is abandoned by his creator, Frankenstein. An argument can be made that Frankenstein is the true monster of the film. Unlike most boogeyman figures, we empathise with the creature at times and how he is met with such disgust and disdain by those who come in contact with him. Released in the 1930s, it might be a little more tame than the horror movies we see today, but there are still moments that are genuinely unsettling and creepy. Boris Karloff plays the iconic role of the creature, but a special mention should be given to Colin Clive, who was fantastic as Henry Frankenstein. Number 2. Psycho. There are so many twists and turns as this film goes from one genre into something completely different. It's a very unique movie in being perhaps the first film ever to introduce us to our main character only for her to be killed off halfway through the film. You have Norman Bates, who's one of the most iconic characters in the history of horror. And like any great horror film, there's great tension and atmosphere. But what Psycho does so well is it takes its time to tell its story, and the film is all the better for it. A true classic and Hitchcock's best film. Number 1. The Shining. For me, The Shining is not only the best horror film of all time, but one of the scariest and most unsettling horror films of all time. Isolated in a massive hotel, long narrow hallways, girl ghosts, and an unhinged Jack Nicholson, who like most of his roles is fantastic. The music is extremely powerful and effective in conveying that there is something not quite right with the Overlook Hotel. Shelley Duvall is incredible as Wendy, and you really care about what happens to her and Danny, which is always a sign of great writing. And while there is very little blood and gore, it's more the suggestion and haunting atmosphere that embellishes the horror and makes such an unsettling but also highly entertaining film to watch. The Shining for me is the absolute peak of horror cinema.